Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Dharam Singh, and I am with a beautiful person here, Cheryl Brown. She has accepted my invite to come and talk a very interesting topic. How are you, Cheryl? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. So I'm excited to have you here to talk about some of the interesting points or questions we have. Before that, I'd like to introduce Cheryl is coming from the project and program background with more than 18 years experience. And today I came to know about reinsurance in this industry. So I knew about insurance. Now I also know reinsurance. Great. So Cheryl come from Florida, Ocoee. I think I pronounced correctly. Ocoee, Florida, United States. Okay. Yeah. And she's working for Hannover, a German company, and she has done lots of transformation program. Anything else you like to share?
No, thanks for the introduction and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Cheryl, she's done a PgMP on 2nd of July, just few months ago, actually, almost 2 months. It's like yesterday when you came. Hey, Dharam, can you provide some guidance or some assistance? Unlike other people who go through my mentor program, you attended a exam strategy session. But would you like to talk about your journey? How did you do with PGMP before we jump into questions?
Yeah, I think that when I started my journey, it was October of last year that I had applied um, and got through the audit process and approved and bought my material and paid for my online coursework. I think it was Koenig Solutions that I had paid for. But because of project activities and priorities, I couldn't really get around to studying until February. And at that point, I think the standard had changed
Yeah.
from yeah to a new edition. Um, so I was studying a bit in the old world and also the new world, um, and had used the online solution for some practice exams and found some additional practice exams online. But I was actually surprised it was kind of difficult to find good study material. It was more difficult than, for example, when you would take like the PGM or PMP. There's a lot more coursework out there, and it seemed a little more difficult to navigate. So yeah, so I did some studying in my free time in the afternoons, and felt okay going into taking the exam, but I wasn't really getting some of the workflows and concepts the way that I really wanted to, and found one of your programs online that had kind of a network diagram of how each of the phases worked together, and bought that the night before, and then I think we got connected, and you offered kind of a crash course, test prep course the day before, which was really helpful to ask some last minute questions and get mentally prepared for the exam. So was able to pass, and yeah, now
Yeah.
PGMP.
Great. Great. Yeah, great. So you are PGMP now. That's perfect. And yeah, so sometimes it's difficult. There are not too much documents or information available on the internet, especially around PGMP. I do, we trying, everybody is trying best to so that we can reach to most people. But I obviously it's not massive or not reached to you until the late time. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, just for the people who are interested, I have recently compiled a 5 set of question bank, which is I call it a challenger with 5 mock exam, platinum. I do have option of smaller version as well. So a lot of hard work is gone into that. I'm very very proud of these questions. I'm sure whoever going to prepare is going to be useful for you. And if you can join my mentor program, which is every month I have 1 or 2 program. Love to have you. And I have shared on the chat, if you can see the chat, a number of links actually. Some of them for PGMP preparation, PfMP preparation, and links to the YouTube channels I have, where you can see some of the previously recorded sessions, just like this session, and in a channel where we have lots of podcasts. So you can see that, and also there's a coupon code in case you are joining any of my program. Feel free to use this coupon code, and most of the program you will be able to see $100. Anyway, so you can see the chat. If you don't see that because you joined now, you may not see that. I don't know. You can let me know. I will be happy to share again. So how this session going to go? I have set of questions which I will be asking Cheryl during this journey, and you also have option to ask questions. So you have a question pad. Feel free to ask question, put a question. I will take the question as and when is the right time. I hope Cheryl will answer the question. If not, I will try my best. If he cannot answer the question, we will come back to you after the session. It has not happened that way because all the time we are able to get to the most questions, all the questions. All right. And also during the session, I'm going to give you a PDU code, and you can use it to claim one PDU. So if you are looking for more and more PDUs, you can watch the YouTube channel I have provided you, especially where I have recordings. So any recording where in the last 1 year, most of them, I should not say any, most of the recording can give you one PDU. Okay. Anyway, if this is the only purpose you have, yeah, I don't think that's the only purpose should be. It's more about what can I learn from Cheryl today. There you go. Okay, I'm excited. I have a number of questions. So I will try my best to extract as much knowledge from Cheryl, and guys go to learn from her. Okay, Cheryl, my first question. Um, Harvard Business Review, they're talking about 70% of transformation fail due to lack of engagement. How do you ensure high level engagement and buy in from all stakeholders during a transformation project?
Yeah, I mean, I think engagement really begins with understanding your stakeholders. I think coming into a large project or program, um, it's really important to understand that there are different layers of stakeholders, different locations, different domains. I would often, begin by trying to understand, what is really the organization structure? What are the roles? What are the responsibilities within that organization? I mean, traditionally, yes, just to identify who are the stakeholders and how are they impacted. But really understanding kind of their perspective and having some empathy for where they're coming from is the starting point. So I would really study organization charts. I would research, team department responsibilities going into the project to understand that landscape a little bit better. I would often find that even, depending on the location, you might have two of the same departments that are titled the same thing, but the operating models would vary widely, right? So, the budgeting process might belong in the operations team in one location and the finance team in another location. And if you're working on a project that's impacting the budgeting process globally, you can't just go to the CFO of all locations and get the right level of engagement. You really need to understand who's taking care of that, and who's responsible for it, and know where they're coming from. So I tend to find that that's the best way to make sure that you're connecting in the right way with the right stakeholders, and you need to build a personal relationship really with all of your stakeholders and have that kind of one-on-one connection so that they can express what are their needs, what are their interests, how do they want to get involved and stay engaged. And so I do find that second step of really building those relationships and trust goes a long way to ensuring that they're really engaged along the process and they're following what you're doing and they're supporting you in the background and along the way.
Right. Yeah. So as we all know, how important it is to have the relationship with the stakeholders. and we should spend enough time to understand who they are, what they're expecting from us, especially around the communication needs. And if you provide them right information, right time, chance of getting their support, buy-in is very high.
Mm-hmm.
If they are going through their some own agenda, generally people are looking what okay, this is what information looking for. I'm looking for. Provide me in this format. So you should spend some time to understand who they are and what kind of information they need, in what structure. Maybe they are graphic, they are looking numbers or graphics or pictures. So according to their needs, you should try to accommodate their needs. So if we have the relationship, we have the support, and we know what to do and not to do. So this transformation programs can be very very easily managed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have done it in your life, but I have on my own experiences where just by purely, of course, managing the program entirely, but stakeholder engagement was the key in the whole success of that program.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is for some other time.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, stakeholder engagement is the key for your success. Never ever underestimate this area.
That's right.
Okay. How often do you conduct post-mortem reviews after completing the transformation project and understanding what key lessons have you learned from these reviews?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe more traditionally or historically, we would conduct lessons learned after the end of each project. And in the US, it was typically an annual cycle. So we would never have a project that would last more than a year. So we'd have kind of an annual, increment and lessons learned after each project. On my current program, I mean, it's a very large program with multiple projects. We've built in a program level quarterly retro process where we get together with all the project leads and the IT leads, and we talk about what's going well, what do we need to improve, what have we learned, and we can kind of course correct midstream a lot more effectively. So it's more aligned towards kind of continuous improvement. Than what I've seen. And you can benefit from the lessons learned, right, in in your current project
Yeah,
on a more frequent basis is what we found.
yeah. So yeah, lesson learned, as everybody knows, is another important area. One is to keep learning from them. One, what happened, good or bad. It's not only bad. It's not about finger pointing. It's about learning from those whatever event happened, what we will do next time, so we'll be in better situation.
Yeah,
If something did not work, okay, what will do better? If
yeah,
that worked, we like to repeat it even better, even more effectively. What else we can do? So the lesson learned, I have seen this actually, utilizing those lesson learned sessions, learn from that and record what else we can do or what are the mitigation we're going to have for future projects and programs.
yeah. And in terms of your second question, like what are the lessons learned, that we've experienced? And I would say there's a few, like say general themes that let's say these are the lessons that we tend to learn more than once, right?
Mm,
That come back,
yeah,
time and again. I think one of the lesson learned was, not saving the biggest and most complex use case for last. I mean, I
yeah,
think that sometimes there's a tendency to pick, the easier things to pilot, start small, increment, right? That's the agile methodology and approach. But sometimes that will come back to bite you, right? And so for things like a global, we've got a global financial system that we're deploying to every location. And, we really saved the biggest location for last. And, that means there's a lot of running people in a productive system, and you've got to make a lot of changes in that productive system to meet these additional requirements, which weren't considered initially, right? And so sometimes you do need to bite the bullet and do the hard thing first, versus saving the hard thing for last. The other lesson learned, and I'll probably come back to this a little bit later, is to really have your target operating model in mind from the beginning. Many cases we would have a project that was initiated by one group without really thinking about the production operations of that thing, and we didn't involve the people who would ultimately own the thing because we didn't realize that they were state. You know what I mean? We didn't ask those questions from the beginning, right? So if we need to change the operating model, if we need to put a new operating capability in place to take on responsibility for something we build within a project, we should do that from the beginning, right? You should know what is that target operating model, who's going to be responsible for that thing, how are they going to run it, do they need a team of people, and you need to establish that team from the beginning. And always, I think key resources are a risk, right? So time and time again, we find that there's always just a few key players that have this embedded and special knowledge that really drives our ability to execute and deliver on new solutions. So, early identifying these key resources early and putting in kind of long-term strategies to back up these people is super important. Like you cannot do that early enough. So those would be my top three, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So look, as we know importance of the lesson learned, and you are doing it and learning and getting it better and better every time. And those key people, your SMEs, keeping, working with them to make sure you have good terms and they keep you healthy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, just to remind you, we have a question pad just in case you want to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions. Love to see more questions. All right, until that time, I will keep asking my questions. How can organization ensure that their transformation initiatives are sustainable in the long term?
Yeah, so I think that goes back to this idea of the target operating model, right? So in my view, it's key to transformation sustainability. You have to understand once a new business process or system is deployed, how will it operate? Who's taking ownership of the system to run it? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to provide business support? Who's the product owner in the future? And you need to answer those questions before you begin the implementation, because the people doing the implementation should be the same people who are going to own that thing after you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. Like I can't tell you how many times, one team built something new. They tried to hand it off to, they said, oh, well, we're a project team, right? So we're not going to run, this thing in production. We need to hand it off to a different team. And, every single time there's problems, right? So I wouldn't have done it this way, or, this is really hard to maintain, or we can't engage. We don't have the right customer. There's always issues when it comes to implementation. So that's my key, is always know who's going to own it when you're done and have them be part of the implementation from the beginning and take ownership from the beginning.
Yeah. And you invite or engage your operations team early enough in your programs so they are part of the discussions and aware of.
Ideally, they're part of the project team, right? So if they have line activities today, you find somebody to backfill their day job and you bring them into the project team and they help you build the new thing, and then when it's ready to deploy, they can go back to their operations. So that's a model that we find to be pretty
Okay.
successful.
So use the same people and the whatever you have project team, transition them to the operation team, and they will
That's
look
right.
after the ongoing transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But some of them project managers they want to stay as the project managers. They don't want to become the operation managers. What do you do?
Well, that's why the job is fun, right? So you have to you got to really get in there and you got to talk to the operations team, because they're really your your customer, right? They're the ones that have to
Yeah.
take that and run with it. Yeah.
So anything else you can do to make your transformation more sustainable?
I mean, I think change management, right? So, really building in change management from the beginning as a separate work stream with the change management team. That's just their day job every day. They come to work and they think, how can we do change management better? Who's being impacted by the project, and how can I, make them more aware of what change is coming, and how can I prepare them for adopting this new thing, or using this new tool, and how can I make sure that they're up to date on what's happening. So I think that that's the other kind of key that I would say is important.
Okay, good. And support from your management, how important it is during the transformation.
I mean, it's very important. You need a good sponsor. You need somebody who's gonna make sure that the executive management team is supporting the initiative, so that if there's any sort of detractors or negative influences from somewhere, they can help kind of um, address that for you, right, and keep the project kind of safe from those forces that could derail things unnecessarily.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. How do you ensure effective leadership and team support during transformation changes?
I mean, I think um, we often struggle with how to, I would say, find an effective bridge between the leadership and the execution teams for
Yeah.
transformational changes. The execution teams are often really bogged down in the details, right, and are dealing with real world daily problems, and are just trying to kind of survive, day to day. And executive management don't always have visibility into some of the complexities of that daily work, right? And we don't have time to explain that to the executive management team, because they've got other important things to do. So, I mean, I think we have to find some mechanisms and frameworks to bridge, the business strategy, the program strategy, and the execution lines from a communication perspective,
Mhm.
so that
Yeah.
the execution team doesn't get so lost in the details that they, start to veer off course. We tend to like the concept of big rocks. It's an analogy where you probably heard of it, right? Where if you have a jar, and first you put in the sand, and then you put in the pebbles, and then you have a big rock, it won't fit in the jar, right? But if you put the big rock in first, and then you can fit the sand and the pebbles kind of around the big rock, everything fits in the jar. So we actually use the term big rocks when we talk about our goals and our objectives, and these are really the things that we need to put in the jar first and focus on, and make sure we don't lose sight of that, and we get that thing done. And maybe there's some other things that we can get done, along the way, but we don't lose kind of our focus on the big picture when we're in the weeds from an execution standpoint. So we
Mhm.
find that helps keep kind of scope creep in check, and provides kind of clear guidance in terms of prioritizing our daily work, and making decisions.
Okay. No, no, I remember I'm watching this video about this professor, how he was showing all this, the big jar, the few things he got. Okay, this is rocks, and we got sand, we got water, we got this. How can we put, you know, efficiency? We're looking for efficiency. So if, as you mentioned, let's start with the big things.
Yeah,
Rocks gone inside. Now we put the sand, then we put something else, then we put something else, then put water, everything, and you see everything is fit inside.
that's right.
That's a great example, great example, and I know that whoever made that video was awesome job, because that talks about how the relationship part, but here we can use it for the
Mm.
transformation part. Okay, so Boston Consulting Group, that's where we're saying, notes that the digital transformation is not just about the technology, but it's about rethinking business model. Can you share an example of how you have successfully rethought of rethought a business model during the transformation?
Yeah, I mean, business model elements could include a lot of different things, right? So you can be talking about different customer segments, channels for distribution and communication, revenue streams, or like cost structure. In my experience, has been focused on what I would call the cost structure side of the house, because I tend to work in like the back of the house, systems, processes, finance, actuarial, things of that nature. And in that scenario, we're working with systems and processes in a global firm with
Yeah.
globally deployed systems, and from a cost structure, that's always evolving, right? And that's the business model, right? That we have. And we're constantly challenging the status quo regarding the, what are the right shared service models for that kind of an environment? How do you provide the right level of service to local offices from a central location? What's really best to be delivered locally? Where do you need time zone specific, support? Or where do you, I mean, in a highly regulated market, there's a lot of different regulatory requirements in each location that vary, right? So it's hard to have one global system that meets every single, demand of each local market, right? And the mix of business is different. The products are different, in each location. So how do you really support that? In one large project, when dealing with this issue, we actually decided it made the most sense for a particular capability to be supported outside of the main home office, right? So typically everything was managed centrally from our home office. And in this case, because of the mix of business and the size of the other locations, it made sense for them to actually take on global responsibility for a particular service, for all the rest of the locations. That's, all the knowledge, all the resources, all the expertise for that service just resided in a different location. And the home office couldn't support it, in the way that they needed to. And so we had to come up with structures to manage that. It was really challenging because then you have to integrate kind of a shared service model between, multiple locations, and they have to work well together. And you're serving the global community, but it did lead to a better outcome for that particular transformation, and gave better value overall to the organization.
Great. Thank you for sharing the example. Perfect. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. So I have a question. So thank you for the question. So can you please elaborate more with your example about the challenges faced during the business transformation and how you tackled it?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that what comes up a lot for me in large programs is always coming back to the organization structure, and roles and responsibilities. So, I don't know, I think it's called Conway's Law, where systems and processes always mirror an organization structure, because teams tend to build in silos. You know what I mean? They build for their function. This is my job. I want to do it, and so my system needs to support it, right? And so that's probably the most common challenge that I've experienced, is when you're trying to transform a system or a process you're typically looking across those organization
Yep.
lines and saying, well, what actually makes the most sense? What's most efficient? Um, and it's often very difficult to have those conversations with the managers of that one, process, right? Because that's their silo, that's what's important to them. And so, I always find this kind of cross domain alignment, bringing people together across teams, educating them on each other's challenges and convincing them of why it's better to do things in a common way or to bring systems or processes together. A lot of times you actually have to change the organization structure, right, to fit the
Yep.
solution, or to get to change the mindset of the people that you're working with, and that always tends to be the hardest part. But once you can figure that out, once you can say, okay, this is really what the organization is trying to achieve, and the organization structure should align with that, roles and responsibilities should align with that, regardless of how the systems are built today. And then the systems, the transformation just follows easily after that, right? If you've got the right people with the right roles and responsibilities, from the get-go, to match the transformation that you want to achieve, in the end. So I do find that to be um, where I try to focus on, because it's where you get the most benefit and value, and it gets you there much faster, I would say. Otherwise, you're swimming upstream.
Yeah, and that's one of the your biggest challenge where that you have to work with several teams, and
Mm-hmm.
they are working in silos. They don't want to share their information. They don't want to hear a lot from outside. They are doing great, and when you are looking for their support, they don't provide you required support because they're too busy. And sometimes if you share the big picture or big idea, why this program is so important for the entire organization, then they may realize, oh, that's right. I mean, this is actually good for my team and for us as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So showing them the big picture can be something something you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can give you my example. This is where it was not a, it was actually there was a transformation as a program, and one of my work was to implement a device within the network to so that we can measure the email transfer time. So that was one of the small projects, but that was very important for this transformation, entire transformation. And the network engineer working with me was not giving me enough information. He was, Dharam, I'm busy in my operations work. I have that's my priority. And on top of that, the two major programs going on, and they are my second priority, third priority. So what about my? No, no, no. Wait, I will do it if I have some time. Hang on. That doesn't work like this. I'm doing one of the most important thing at the moment because if we don't do this work, we will not have business. Then I'm going to talk to my boss. So I'm talking to
Yeah.
the boss. Same thing. Dharam, we have to manage the operations for this bank, and this is very important, and so and so. And these two major programs going on, same story. And he will work for you whenever he get time. He's very busy. Say, look, do you realize that if you don't get the work done in 2 months' time, you don't have to worry about all this operational work into these two major programs? So what do you mean? We'll not have job to do. We'll be fishing on one of the beaches, maybe together. So then he writes, Dharam, what are you talking? What is this program all about? Because he was not aware of that. Sometimes they're good people. They're not aware of what you are doing. Showing them the big picture, the vision. Wow, okay. Also, look at Dharam. He is going to spend at least 50% time for you, and I'm coming from the network experience. I've done all the engineering, what he's doing. If you need, I will jump in. So somebody who was not giving me any support, suddenly he's now calling me every day. Dharam, tell me, everything going okay? Do you need anything else? Do you want me to send somebody else? So, and every situation different, what situation work for me and
Yeah.
for you may or may not work for everybody. So we need to assess the situation, and according to the situation, we need to take our actions
Yeah.
and showing them big pictures. bringing the synergy among. Now PMI has added, you probably know, with the collaboration as one of the domain, how you going to collaborate entire team and all the stakeholders to we get the synergy so we can achieve more than what was possible at all.
Yeah.
So anybody preparing for PgMP, obviously, exam point of view, how important, that's a different thing. But for the running the program, to build bring the efficiency and effectiveness and synergy, yeah, you need to collaborate among various stakeholders. And you should read the standard, the fifth edition standard, even though if you're not working for for PGMP, but the document itself is good. As a member of PMI, you can download it for free and you read, especially the collaboration and the principles. I know this is another new edition. I should not, the exam point of view, I think they have not changed the exam based on the new edition. Is that correct? My assumption correct? Sure.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
They're still kind of pulling from the old edition.
Yeah, so they have not changed the exam so far, as per my knowledge, but they can change. They can start adding some questions around in the collaboration and the eight principles, as maybe in next 2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
So if we have been preparing with PGMP and previous edition, start looking the fifth edition as well. Okay. All right. Any other question, guys? I have already shared the course identifier and the PDU code on the chat. Please take a note of that. Take a screenshot or take a, write it down on notepad. Last thing I want you, as you guys start sending email, hey, Dharam, I could not note the code. Please take a note and I will, and if required, and people watching this video, please send me an email telling, what did you learn from this session, and I will be happy to share the PD code. These PD codes are available for you. These sessions for session available, but PDU you can claim for last 1 year. Okay, if you're watching in 2025, August 31st, August 2025, then yeah, you have to look for other sessions for PDUs. Anyway, so whoever is today here, you can claim the PDU codes, PDU, one PDU you will get. And yeah, so guys, if you need any support, any direction, any guidance on doing PgMP, PfMP, or PMP or PBA, now made the certificate, you can reach out to me. You probably know how to. I mean, simplest thing is you can say www.talktodharam.com. That's as simple as that. Talk to Dharam, and you have my 15-minute time. Anyway, I have also shared a coupon code which can save you $100 if you're attending any of my program. I think the condition is the program, you cannot attach the same coupon code with other coupon code. So one coupon code is applicable, and the course has to be, I think 990 or something more than that. Anyway, so if you are looking for guidance around that, happy to help you. And I'm sure if you are looking more, if you have questions specific to Cheryl, and she's available, she can talk to you now or later. I don't know how open you are for LinkedIn connections. So people, are you open for LinkedIn connection?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So please find her, and she can guide you how to do PGMP or how to do the major transformation. Okay. So I don't have any more questions, guys. And if you have any last minute question to Cheryl or to me, happy to please put it on the chat or put on the question pad. And Cheryl, anything else you like to talk? Any tips and guidance to the people how to live life better?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the only other thing that I could add is, when you were talking about the resources and trying to negotiate for that, 30% of an FTE. I mean, I do think that probably my number one biggest challenge is always going to be resources and getting the right resources and making sure that they have the time and the allocation to execute the work that's necessary, because resources are always scarce, right?
Yeah.
Seem to just become more scarce as complexity grows and demands grow. I do find that we get our best results in transformations when we have dedicated people on the project. So when we have people that are 100% allocated to the project, and can really come out of their line, activities and focus on the project. You get much better results, cleaner communication structures, throughput, is much easier, complexity is reduced. So that would be my tip for the day is try to push for dedicated resources whenever you can and focus on recruiting. And it'll make your transformation flow a bit smoother.
Yeah, transformations are generally very critical, and support from every part of the organization is going to be very, very critical. So you work with your executives, work with your team members, work with your PMO, and anybody else who can support you, get their buy-in, and invite them to the meetings, and get the support. And more collaborative team you're going to have, you're going to find more synergy, and the success of the transformation will become obvious to you. Okay, so one more question I have: which books or resource material used for passing PgMP exam? Do you want to give tips, and I can also talk about that?
Yeah, I used it was called Koenig Solutions. It was an online course called Koenig through Koenig Solutions. Um, and generally it was a good kind of introductory course. They had some video, examples and some tests that you could take, a couple of times. But really, I got a lot more value out of. I went on to Demi, and there was some mock exam questions by Ella Sultan,
Hmm.
and that actually really was a bigger help, I would say, than the Koenig Solutions course. Just really churning through those mock exam questions and seeing what I got wrong and really writing down the index card of here's the concept that you got wrong and here's the right way to think about it and studying it more in the book. It's been a long time since I've had to break out the index card, so it took a bit to get back into the study mode.
Yeah.
But I do find that those mock exams, making the flashcards for missed answers, reviewing the content again, taking another mock exam, kind of repeating that process was my
Yeah.
the biggest help for me. But again, I did really struggle with connecting those dots. So it was your PgMP Pathfinder, I think is
Yeah.
what it was
PgMP
called.
Pathfinder.
Yeah. And, I'm a visual person, right? So I like process flows, I like boxes and arrows and that really helped, my brain, connect some of those dots.
Yeah.
Um, having a hard time figuring out, well, what actually comes first and what comes second and what's really part of this versus this and how does this relate to that. And I did find that to be, really helpful as well.
Yeah. And obviously, you're not aware of my mock exams, which
Right.
yeah,
Not
I
until
mean,
too late. Yeah.
it was too late when you start talking to me. Anyway, so as I said, already I think 80 people have used that mock exam. It's recently released, and feedback I'm getting is great.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to see that. Okay, many people are passing because of the mock exam. And also, it's not mock exams, not enough, but more than that, the books you refer. I'm actually coming out with the app very soon, which I am saying very soon. This is last August. It's now almost ready. This app will have, all the five mock exams plus you have task. Actually, the task is where the pathfinder you're talking about. I'm putting that into this app. So task, describing the task, then followed by the picture, followed by the examples, followed by the keywords from the task, followed by the five questions.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to stay in your mind forever if you go through that process.
Yeah.
With the, I think I'm very proud of that, and I'm very much looking forward to the release of the app. Can't wait. Maybe another 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. It's going to change the game. With
Yeah.
the glossaries and commonly confusing terms, and many things together.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. That would have been nice to have before.
If you do ever do PfMP, I have the similar thing for PfMP and PMP. So look, for the people who are going through this process, look, one thing is don't try everything. One is there are so many material available, not everything is good enough. So use the material which good enough. Talk to the people and listen to the people who've gone through this process. I have so many other videos on YouTube. Watch them, listen to them, and if you have any question clarification, happy to talk. Having 500 contributed to the success of 512 PgMPs and 147 PfMPs, I think I can be the best, so at least to guide you in the right direction. Anyway, so I think if you don't have any other question, we can close the session. Thank you, all of you, for joining again and again, and happy to have you back again very soon. I think next session is on 12th of September. So, and that's going to be another exciting session. And thank you, Cheryl, for sharing your knowledge.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care. All the best.